Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Genoa Township Board of Trustees meeting. This is a regular trustee meeting. Today's date is November 2nd, 2023, and the time is 6:30 p.m. This time I'll ask Pat to call the roll.
Mr. Antonetts?
Here.
Ms. Goodman?
Here.
Ms. Bond?
Here. Also present, we have our fiscal officer, Pat Myers, our police chief, Steve Gamble, Director of Human Resources, Linda Greco, Deputy Police Chief, Jim McMillan, Fire Chief, Joe Ponzi, Director of Zoning and Development, Joe Schaefer, Township Administrator, Paul Wise, and Deputy Director of Road and Bridge and Buildings and Grounds, Lauren Fitzpatrick. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody who's able to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll ask Chief Gamble to lead us.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Paul Wise.
Good evening, Board. Before we get busy with the fiscal report, I'd like to propose a resolution this evening. We have had an employee, a department head of the township, who's been a loyal employee for the last 10 years. He's led the department with strength, compassion, true leadership. He's led the levy committee. He's led the building committee to build a new police station. And he's been a true, honest Genoa Township employee for the last 10 years. So I ask the board at this time to accept his resignation.
I'll move to accept the retirement of Police Chief Stephen Gamble, effective December 15th, 2023. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Antonetts?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Bond?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Board. So as Paul said, I want to inform you I will be retiring as a Genoa Township Police Chief effective December 15th, 2023. After 10 years as chief here, another 34 years at Columbus Police for a total of 44 in local law enforcement, it's time to hang up the badge and gun and move on to the next phase of my life and spend more time with my family. My wife, Luann, is here, and we both look forward to having more time to visit our son in Boston and our daughter in Dallas. I have to tell you that serving as the Genoa Township Police Chief has been the greatest honor of my professional career. I have had the great fortune to work alongside the most dedicated men and women of our department, and I am extremely proud how they go above and beyond to serve all in the township. I especially want to thank the trustees. You have all been wonderful to work for, and your support is fantastic, and everybody in the department appreciates it. I also want to thank everybody in the administration for their support to me and the department. When I came here, from somewhere else, I was pleasantly surprised to see how well all the departments and administration work together to get the job done and really go out of their way above and beyond to serve the residents. From my experience, this does not happen everywhere. And I really do credit Paul Wise for creating a culture where everybody within the administration works together collaboratively and works to get things done. And everybody treats each other with respect and kindness, which is rare these days. It's unique. It should serve as a model for other governmental agencies. So I'll leave here with a bit of sadness, but I leave feeling so thankful and blessed for all the opportunities I've had as Chief of Police, so thank you.
Thank you. And Chief, thank you for your service for the last 10 years and leading the department. I mean,
Chief, I've worked with you for all of those 10 and before, and I want to say that it's been wonderful with what you've done with the police department. You've established mentoring and training for our officers and other staff. You've developed a succession plan so that the police department's going to continue beyond when you leave. But it's your mark on that department that has made such a difference. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to work with you over these past years.
Yeah, my short period here, I've learned a lot about your operation. I have a lot of respect. I think you've exposed me some stuff that I've seen that really verify the great job you've done with your force. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. At that, I'm going to move on to Pat.
Steve will be standing in for Brutus Buckeye at the next meeting. That's his next meeting. Thank you.
Couple things tonight. First, I'd ask the trustees to approve the meeting minutes, the regular trustee meeting of October 5th and the special trustee meeting of October 23rd, please.
Okay, I'll move to approve the following trustee meeting minutes: October 5th, 2023, regular trustee meeting, October 23rd, 2023, special trustee meeting. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Next, the 2023, September 2023 financials. I'll have them for your review and signature. Total fund balances of $27,694,179.47. The way that breaks out is the investments are $21,857,400.60, and the primary account of $5,836,778.87. Everything's reconciled and closed for the month of September. Next on the agenda, I'd ask for approval of the Genoa Township Records Policy and Schedule of Records Retention and Disposition with feedback from Trustee Vaughn and Trustee Goodman. I don't know, Mark, if you had, Trustee Antonez, if you had any changes that you had after your review, okay. That being said, I just asked for approval of that, and then in January, we will set up the Records Commission meeting for the first quarter of next year, and we'll have that as part of the reorg meeting that in January.
Okay, I'll move to approve the Genoa Township Records Policy and Schedule of Records Retention and Disposition, RC-2, as approved and recommended by the Genoa Township Records Retention Committee. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antonetts?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we've talked about this. Trustee Vaughn asked me to get involved with this a few months ago. We talked about what a CIC meant and whether it made sense to do that or whether we wanted to go back to the Genoa Township, the Delaware County Foundation to open an account that would allow us to bring in donations and not have to administer that because we administer to the foundation, and then allowing residents to have a tax write-off for their donations to the township. I worked with Susie Bibler. We put everything together. Again, this particular agreement's been reviewed by all of you. So I would ask for a motion to enter into agreement with Delaware County Foundation to create a designated fund to be known as the Genoa Township Fund for the purpose of accepting donations on behalf of the township.
I'll move to enter into an agreement with the Delaware County Foundation to create a designated fund to be known as the Genoa Township Fund for the purposes of accepting donations on behalf of the township. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion?
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Yes. Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Next, we have some supplemental appropriations for medical expenses and also some concrete work on the playground. So we need to approval for supplemental appropriations as presented, one from fire for medical expenses, one from the general fund to zoning expenses, and one from general fund to the playground improvements.
Okay, I'll move to approve the following supplemental appropriation amendments as presented. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Motion carries.
And then we do need to make some permanent appropriation amendments because we're not going to move money into those funds. We're going to make permanent appropriations, which will go up to the auditor's office. So those are road and bridge medical. We're going to increase that by the amount of $100,000. The internal service fund would go up $310,000, and that is you'll see that there's $310,000 for medical being done, and that 310 is to offset the internal service fund for medical. So those two equal. And you'll see that when we go to actually spend the money down below, you'll see the 100 to 100 to 100 and the 10, all equaling the 310. So, but we need to do the amendment first.
Okay. I'll move to approve the following permanent appropriation amendments. Road and Bridge Fund, medical insurance increase in the amount of $100,000. Parks Fund, salaries increase in the amount of $15,000. Internal Service Fund, medical insurance increase in the amount of $310,000. Motor Vehicle License Tax Fund, contracted services increase in the amount of $20,000. Gas Tax Fund, contracted services increase in the amount of $38,000. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antonetts? Yes. Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Motion carries.
Now that you've made motions and action on getting the money where it needs to be to take care of it, we need to do the purchase orders for the medicals and then and now for the playground improvement, medical expenses to Prairie Estates and the concrete improvement. So this again is just appropriating the money and then actually spending the money.
Okay, I'll move to approve the regular purchase orders, then and now purchase orders, and blanket purchase orders as presented. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antonetts?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes,
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Thank you.
motion carries.
Next, I have, we have a couple grants I need you to accept. The Ambulance Transportation EMS First Responders Grant and also the ARPA First Responders Grant.
I'll move to accept the Ohio Office of Budget Management, Ohio Ambulance Transportation, and Ohio Emergency Management Agencies, Ohio First Responder Recruitment, Retention, and Resilience Grant in the amount of $20,000. Approve Exhibit A, retention bonuses, and authorize the fiscal officer to amend the 23 Fire and Rescue Ambulance and EMS Service Fund permanent appropriations for salaries increase in the amount of $20,000. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Discussion?
Just a note that to amend the 2023, not just 23.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody want to talk about this? Kind of summarize what it is for the public?
This was a grant that we were unaware that was going to become available through the through the Office of Budget and Management. And basically, $20,000 to any qualifying fire EMS agency in the state of Ohio as a recruitment, resilience, or retention grant. We had already received a previous grant and now another one that you're going to probably talk about next, but this was $20,000 through OMB. We basically applied for it and received it, and it'll be given out to all the personnel in the fire department, specifically under EMS. So you had to provide some sort of EMS service. So anyone that qualifies in the fire department, basically if you have an EMT card or paramedic certification, you're eligible once we divide that amongst the employees for the retention grant.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Antonetts? Yes. Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Joe mentioned that there is another grant for the ARPA First Responder Grant, so I'd ask for acceptance of that grant as well.
Okay, I'll move to accept the ARPA First Responder Wellness Recruitment, Retention, and Resilience Grant in the amount of $228,000. Approve Exhibits B and C, retention bonuses, and authorize the fiscal officer to amend the 2023 Police Fund permanent appropriations for salaries, increasing the amount of $104,000, and the 2023 Fire Fund permanent appropriations for salaries, increasing the amount of $124,000. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you.
The reason that we increase those amounts, the appropriations, we're not increasing appropriation, we're increasing it because this money is going into that fund.
Okay.
The exact amount for which we receive for the grant, and then the payouts will come out. But without doing that, we can't make the payments out.
Okay, thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Antonetts?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. And lastly, there was a question I received about the Ohio checkbook. For those that don't know, the Ohio checkbook is a vehicle the state has where local governments and municipalities can put all financials out, every penny spent, every penny that comes in and so forth for the public to see. We did that in the 2017, 2018 timeframe, made that available. But what happened, what we saw happen was there was quite a bit of fraudulent activity happening at the township. And there was a feeling out there that maybe the checkbook information has something to do with that because we were getting emails to Linda, can you change my direct deposit, and stuff like that. And it looked as though it was coming from employees. There's some processes that Linda's put in place to handle that. We put in what's called Positive Pay with Huntington Bank, which takes care of that as far as before we make any payments, there's a verification of all those payments made, those deposits. So we took care of that. We have all the Ohio checkbook information online and ready to flip a switch and turn it back on if the trustees so desire. My reservation with that is our financials are available to anyone, anytime, by a simple call to the township or a public records request, whatever they like, we'll provide them anything they want. So to just have it out there on the website to be viewed by anyone still bothers me a little bit as far as the fraudulent activity. So I don't know if that's, you don't have to decide that tonight. I just wanted to think through it and think, do we want to do it, continue to hope nothing happens and keep Positive Pay in place and do all the right things? Or do we already put the financials on the website, the financials are put in the newsletter, so there's no lack of transparency on that stuff to get, not to mention they can just call Donna and say, can I have last month's financials, and we'll provide them to them. So I just want you guys to think about that, and, maybe next meeting you can talk between yourselves and decide if you want to click that button.
Have you reached out to other townships, and
Some
what do
other
they do?
townships, some other townships, Orange Township puts it out there.
They do.
Liberty's is out there, but not up to date, as far as they kind of stopped and like we did and left it. It was still out there, but it was the old information. So there are other townships that do it. Positive Pay helps, because it's going to keep us from the actual fraud happening, but we're still probably going to see. So is it the Ohio checkbook? We don't know for sure, but it coincided exactly when we did that, and the trustees felt at that time it was, maybe this doesn't make sense, so.
Yeah.
One of the problems with having our information out online like this, they can see, anyone can see any of the vendors that we use. And so it doesn't take a person to be too smart to figure out who the payroll vendors are. We've actually had fake payroll change documents from those vendors being sent to us and having them try to push it through Linda and Donna as a real document. And I know it just seems like Linda's always fighting the fraud issue in her office, right, Linda? With
Microphone. Yeah, thank you.
We have a really big problem the last several years. So, I mean, it's across the board in almost all areas, like unemployment, especially the wanting to affect different checking accounts, savings accounts that our employees are putting money into. So sometimes it's hard to tell that these are not actual, requests from employees. So Don and I actually changed our form that we use, hoping that that would help. And I think we're going to start going forward this coming year with having employees have the forms they can have them in their computers or in their departments. And once they fill them out, they can send them inter-office mail, but we're not going to send them back and forth anymore via email. So it would probably just help if we didn't have, I would think, that information out there, especially because it's so easy for us to give that information to anybody who wants it.
From my perspective, the key is we're not trying to hide anything.
Absolutely
You come in, you
not.
can have whatever we've got, that's part of what we do. I'm aware of one case where one of our staff members, their bank account was changed, and so they had to go through the hoops of getting it fixed and getting that money pulled back. That's hard on any family, but specifically for our younger families with children and everything. You can't pay your bills, that's very detrimental. Late charges come up. So I would not have any qualms about pulling that off of the Ohio checkbook, but making it very clear to anyone that wants to know that they can get that information by contacting the fiscal office.
Yeah, and the only other thing I think we can do as well is contact the treasurer's office and explain our concern and ask them what safeguards they have in place for the Ohio checkbook. But I think you've seen, I think if you look at, if you look at Ohio checkbook, you'll see that fewer and fewer municipalities are actually up to date with that information. And it's not hard. We close the year out, we click a button, it goes to the auditor, goes to treasurer, and they put it on the site. So it's not hard to do. It's not that nobody wants to do it. I just want to make sure that we know that information's out there and are people okay with that? That's all.
Okay.
So again,
You have
no
anything?
action, just wanted to let you
Yeah,
guys know.
thanks for bringing it up. Okay, anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up to public comment. If anybody wants to speak, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Rick Wieland. I'm at 9500 Britton Woods Drive, Galena. And I'm here this evening to respond and to ask the trustees. I had sent an email out on September 29th asking to schedule a follow-up meeting with the trustees regarding the meeting that I had presented some stuff at the September meeting, on the September 7th meeting, and I hadn't heard anything back from you guys since then. So I wanted to come here this evening, and I need to follow up and address those concerns and some remedies that we might be able to come up with on that. In review, I had presented applicable parts of the code that required the zoning inspector to perform his duties. And I'm here this evening to see if I need to follow up on this. First would be regarding the 2 violations in the Britton Woods subdivision. And after reviewing the response from Joe Shaver at that September meeting, where he went on to comment about standing by his decision that the 2 building structures in that subdivision are code compliant, I contest that that is wrong. He has been wrong about this from the start, and I have proof to justify it. He goes on to admit that things need to be done right in his response at that last meeting. This decision was not done right and needs to be corrected. Previously, according to Joe in a letter to the builder's representative, it states that should any additional evidence of a violation regarding this or any other zoning matter come to our attention by any means, zoning enforcement could resume. In review, once again, the building height limit of section 606.09 of the rural residential district states that unless otherwise permitted by this resolution, no building in this district shall exceed 35 feet in height. Also, in our zoning resolution in section 1616, concerning exceptions, modifications, and interpretations of the height regulations, it states under 1616.01 that the height limit stipulated elsewhere in this zoning resolution shall not apply to spires, belfries, cupolas, domes, bulkheads, elevator penthouses, or parapet walls that are extending more than 4 feet above the building, the height of the building. The evidence is that there are no such structures extending into this exception. No spires, cupolas, bulkheads, or any other structures. The buildings themselves are extending into that exception, which violates the code. So I contend that lowering the height to under 35 feet of those existing buildings or proceeding through a BZA with a variance request are 2 possible remedies. The evidence shows that we're not talking about inches or a couple feet, as Joe mentioned in his reply at the previous meeting, but that at least each structure is at least 3 feet or more above the 35-foot limit. A 35-foot limit for a 2-story home is a big deal when it is in a subdivision with other homes that are being built and designed to be under that 35-foot zoning height limitation. These homes tower over neighboring properties and look out of place compared to the rest of the subdivision. Because of this evidence, and that Joe Schaefer admits that things need to be done right, I request that the township trustees require the zoning director to resume enforcement of the 35-foot building height zoning regulations for those 2 homes in the Britton Woods subdivisions, just as he has begun to do with the property on Hoover Woods Road, which I understand is on schedule for a future BZA meeting. As to the property at 4777 Worthington Road that I brought up, I talked to Paul Benson, and my question is, why is it taking so long to verify that building height? The application on that said 21 feet, which should have been a red flag if anybody were looking at the plans. This building is calculated to be approximately 40 feet tall above grade. The zoning department must enforce its regulations in order to ensure the citizens of this township the ability to advance existing local health, safety, and welfare of our communities. With that being reviewed, number 1, I had previously asked the trustees to hold the zoning director, Joe Schaefer, accountable for these violations. I would like to get an answer when the trustees are going to require the zoning director to enforce all the zoning violations I have brought forward. Number 2, I request that the township require the zoning department to verify that the building height on applications submitted is not a violation of the 35 feet limit prior to approval, which entails coming up with some type of a system for his department to determine that. Number 3, I would suggest that we have some type of check and penalty if the applicant provides information on a permit application and does something to the contrary without prior approval. Number 4, I would also like to suggest that we have confirmation of the actual structural height after construction and before issuing a certificate of zoning compliance by including language that would include a survey for the height of all structures to be required in section 115.03A. This would be an update to the zoning resolution. This section covers stuff and is done for foundations and setbacks, and I think it should be updated to include building heights. So those are a lot of my concerns that I need to have addressed on this building height issue. And I don't know if I need to, I can't probably meet with the trustees all together outside of this room or whatever. So if I need to meet with one of you and Joe Schaefer again or whatever we need to do, if there's any other questions or information you need from me, I've got all the information and facts and stuff to support this stuff. But I need to get something resolved on this. I mean, we're dealing with homeowners associations, and our association documents actually require us by law to follow zoning requirements and stuff. It's actually written into our HOA documents. So we can't have zoning things going on that are not being enforced by our zoning department. It's just not feasible.
Have you been to a zoning meeting?
Which zoning?
Zoning meeting to discuss this? Because I know they're reviewing the comprehensive plan, zoning resolution. Have you presented all of this to the committee?
Not to the zoning commission, no. As
Okay.
far as the building height stuff or
Yeah.
whatever? No. The
'Cause
last conversation I had with this stuff was kind of with you and Paul at that meeting or whatever,
Yeah.
with Joe, and we talked about stuff. And that was before I was presented to a BZA meeting, which I couldn't which wouldn't hear the case because of standing.
Mhm. Okay.
So, and I brought up other issues. You know, there's building height issues that were changed on the garage heights a couple years back that affects the zoning code. It was done here for I don't know what reason. We asked that question before, and it was never studied or brought up on who actually determined why that was done, or if that was just something that Mr. Schaefer did on his own. It's not in compliance with other townships in our area, I'll tell you that, as far as what we have for garage buildings, as far as a structure height of 22 feet, which I think it is apparently now. And at that point, I'd ask the zoning commission to review and consider changing that, at least taking it back to what it was, because it creates too many hardships at the level that it's at now. Yeah, so there are a lot of different zoning changes and stuff and like I said, we have some stuff in our zoning code to enforce as far as setbacks and foundation surveys and building lines and that type of stuff. I mean, we had one up in our neighborhood that was a zoning violation because the builder built it too close in the front 75-foot setback. The township didn't catch it until the thing was finalized.
Okay.
And then the homeowners come in and get a variance, which is what's about the only application at that time. We'd like to stop the stuff ahead of time. But the ones that are violating the codes need to go through the process so that it can be, so that we can consider it through our homeowners association and everything else too.
Okay.
Instead of having things wide open.
Who wants to lead this? I mean, I'm happy. You're going to do it? Okay. So trustee Antonetts will be your contact,
All righty,
and Joe.
sounds good.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, guys.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to trustee comments. Anybody?
I don't have anything new.
I'd just like to thank all of the departments for the efforts that they put forth Saturday at the Trick or Treat Open House. It was phenomenal. The weather was great. We had, I think, probably the biggest turnout we've had in a long time, and everyone did a phenomenal job. So thanks to everyone. It was a lot of fun.
I'd second that. That was on my list. But yeah, it's been a while since I've attended that, and you forget how awesome it is. So thank you to everyone. The next thing I have is Source Point will be holding bingo in this room on November 14th at 1:30 p.m. for the seniors, 55 and over. If you live in Delaware County and you're 55 and over.
You say 55 and older?
55 and over. Yeah, you can come play bingo on the 14th. And then the other thing I just want to bring up for discussion, I want to know how you two feel about it, proposing creating an events committee. I just don't, I mean, if you say no, fine, but I just thought with the holiday event coming up, and then if we repeat the tailgate thing, it has been brought to me to do that. I got a lot of good feedback from the tailgate event, and the idea would be that you would hop neighborhoods every year and offer that somewhere else in somebody else's neighborhood. The resident, I know that was really special to the Oaks of Highland Lakes. I heard from residents that day that they hadn't seen some of their neighbors in years. So I just proposing it would be the weekend before the 4th of July, because I know there's a lot going on 4th of July weekend. So like to stay away from that, or the 4th of July, or I'm sorry, on the 4th of July. So I would propose doing something like that every year, the weekend before the 4th of July. But so this committee would be in charge of those two events.
Kind of sprung that one on
I
us.
know, that's why you can think about it.
Yeah,
There's no other way for me to tell you, and besides right now. You know, so
I
if you
would
wanna
not be
wait,
ready this evening to
that's
make a
okay.
decision.
That's okay,
You
yeah,
know, gut reaction, I have a couple concerns.
that's okay.
How
Yep.
do you pick the neighborhoods? Because you might have 10 neighborhoods, so that takes up the
Yes.
first 10 years. Now,
Right.
what about the rest of them?
I know, yeah.
You know, and we all, yeah,
And I would be open for altering that. That's just an idea.
sure.
So if you didn't like that idea and you had another idea of how to do it, I'm open. Orange does have a communications/events committee. They do both.
Well, and I think over time, our events have gone to various departments. Like I know
Mhm.
Linda Greco's area does the Easter egg hunt, and kind of everybody, and Linda, especially with the maintenance building, does the trick or treat.
Yep.
I don't want to pull any of those
No.
away from people that
No,
don't
I'm not
want
either.
them pulled away.
I'm not either, yeah, that would not be the
And
goal.
I do think that Leslie Strader,
Mhm.
who does a phenomenal amount of work for a part-time employee,
Mhm.
gets pulled into a lot of things. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it is communications/events. I think we've got to do a lot more research before we jump into this one.
It's fine.
Yeah, I'm open to discussion.
Okay.
I think we need to work out some details.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you for your input. That's all I have, unless anybody else has trustee comment. All right, I'll move on to Paul.
Thank you, Board. This evening, I don't see Mr. Belcastro here, so I'll move on to my second item on the agenda. Every year at this time, this month, our payment for the general liability insurance comes due. This year, the increase, it went up about 10, 11%. And you may ask, why did it go up? Well, two things. We are covering more equipment and more assets now. From last year, our policy now covers $1.2 million more than it did last year. So you may say, how do we get that number? Well, when you go from a playground that was built way many years ago to now a playground that was $175,000, there you go. There's a chunk right there. The 2 restrooms we added this year, that's added on. We had playground equipment updated, the Ninja course. You know, that wasn't added on last year's premium, that was added this year, so that's a chunk of change. So you also have increases due to claim coverage. We have been covering the past, in our history, claims from back when the Benacauser lawsuit went on. That still hasn't dropped off our experience. And that year alone, I think claims doubled what the premiums were. So we're still on the hook for experience. And claims are on trending up over the last few years. With if we have a driver hit something and we're liable, you know, it's no longer a cheap fix. It's 20,000 here or 20,000 there. So the summation of all resulted in about a $11,000 increase over last year's premium. So I'd like to ask the board to approve this year's premium.
Okay, I'll move to approve the 2023-2024 general liability insurance renewal and authorize a purchase order to Reinhardt Walters Danner in the amount of $101,852 for the 2023-2024 general liability insurance. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion.
Yeah, just a quick question, Paul. Is this a lump sum payment?
Yes.
It is annual, just the annual
Yes.
lump sum?
Anything else?
Oh,
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Antoinette?
yes.
Ms. Goodman? Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Secondly, I was asked by the board to look into getting the ball rolling for the process for having food trucks in the township. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of activity at township level dealing with food trucks. I found a couple cities, City of Westerville, City of Hilliard, have some kind of ad hoc policies. Westerville's policy has not been in concrete yet. They're calling it a pilot program. So basically, I don't have a lot of guidance from the board on this. So is it the board's intention just to make a policy for just our own self-hosting trucks on our own properties, correct?
Yeah, I don't,
I,
to start out, is my personal input. I don't think we should allow other people who are using the park to, I don't know that we really got clarification on whether that can even happen from the prosecutor.
right, well, I caution you on that, allowing others to
Yeah.
have that, because a couple years ago, we had a very large group.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 people showed up at McNamara and basically parked all over the grass. They destroyed the bathrooms. It was just, we don't have a park staff that polices. We have them on the weekend, but if something happens after hours when they're there, we lose a lot of property. We have property damage and other things. So allowing them to have a food truck unguided, et cetera, would be chaos in my point of view. They'll hook things up to our power,
That question was never asked to the prosecutor.
Okay,
So
I just want to
don't,
have some
we don't have
guidance.
clarification on that.
So on the Westerville plan, they do have a nice little expectation area. And if you want myself or someone else to draw up some of these things into a plan for Genoa, we could do that.
Okay.
I know you've had chance now to read it over the last week, but we can do it in draft form and then do a back and forth edit or whatever.
Okay.
And see if we can end up with something agreeable with everybody. The big problem too, Delaware County, it's kind of, they don't have a process for inspections of food trucks. So it's only Franklin County, so we'd have to rely upon them producing a certificate from Franklin County. I think Chief has something to add.
If I may, we at the county fire chiefs level, along with the health department, are working in conjunction with developing a plan to inspect and license food trucks. Food trucks are required to be inspected by the Ohio Fire Code. And we don't have that ability in place, but we are working towards that. And with the hopes that next year, we would have a program in place where the various food truck vendors could show up to, I think they called it like a rodeo, and representatives from different fire agencies throughout the county and the health department would be there to conduct the inspections. And then they would receive a inspection sticker, and then that way they could travel anywhere in the county. That is a collaborative effort that we are working on, and if you need updates on that, I can get you updates. But we would like to be included in that process, not we, the county fire chiefs, the fire department, because I think it is for the safety of everyone to make sure that those trucks have gone through some sort of inspection.
Yep.
It's very important.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a fluid plan
Yeah.
right now, but we're moving forward on putting something in draft form for the board.
Okay.
Next up,
Wait,
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
can I please say something?
Yes.
It was my understanding, going back to when these would be, that this was township events only that we were looking at. We were not looking at opening this up to everybody.
Yep.
And I'm a little, I don't quite understand what Chief Ponzi was saying. Is that just the sticker for fire safety? What about food safety? Is anybody looking into the health department checking out these places? I had no idea that they weren't sanctioned in the county.
The proposal that we're working towards would be a joint inspection.
Oh, good.
So it
Okay.
would be inspected by the fire inspectors and also the health department.
Perfect.
And you would have to pass both inspections to receive your certificate, your sticker, to be able to do business in the county.
Excellent. So if someone came from Marion, Morrow, someplace else, they still have to come through Delaware to be authorized to do business here?
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right, yeah.
I'm sorry, I mean, how do you enforce that? Or police it?
If they don't have a sticker, they're not allowed, a lot of places will require, you'll also get paperwork. And a lot of places will require you to submit your proof of inspection when they're seeking to do business with you.
So would the enforcement come from wherever jurisdiction they're operating?
Yes. The local jurisdiction would have the authority to deny them to be able to do business if they were non-compliant with we would adopt that locally, the plan that we put in place for the countywide. We would adopt that locally as our own AHJ, that we're going to comply with this rule. And then if someone shows up and they don't have this, the inspection sticker, then they're not allowed to do business here.
Yeah, and on the applications, at least this Westerville one, it even talks about what is your permit number and all those kinds of things. So we'd know that ahead of time.
Yep.
So, thanks.
Good.
Good,
Okay.
good guidance, thank you. Next up is a change order for the old police station demo project. Before I get into this specific change order, let me give you a little story here. So the board at a couple meetings ago approved the township applying for demo grants through Delaware County Land Bank. And so from that meeting, we met with Trustee Vaughn and I, Pat, and I met with Treasurer Ranke at his office. Treasurer Ranke, and I'm putting this on record, told us to please do not make any payouts on your police station other than what you've done so far, of course. So I had a talk with our contractor about, listen, we're applying for grant money, please, if you could have a little bit of patience with us on the payouts. Your funds will be coming regardless of approval of the grant or not. So they've been nice to work with. They're a smaller company just starting out with, they've done some smaller projects, whatever. So they're definitely needing our money now for cash flow. So we've applied for the grant through the county. We received notification in the last couple days that the grant was approved at the land bank level at that phase. So now they're recommending approval at the State Department of Development. So there's been 3 or 4 applications in Delaware County for the grant money. So all those are now going to the state for consideration and payouts. So I understand that, the state may or may not have more questions, or they might just allow the lead agency in the county, which is the city of Delaware, to administer the funds. So I don't know how long it's going to take for state bureaucracy to pay out to us the $97,000. So that news is yet to come. But what it's resulted in is now interest has accrued on the payments that we haven't made to the contractor for the demo project. So it's going to result in a change order for interest due of $4,875.01. So to me, if we're going to be awarded the money, it's worth a little bit of interest to get a chunk of change back for the cost of the demolition. So in order for me to have this processed, I need the board to approve the change order. It's number 6 for the demo project.
Okay, I'll move to approve change order number 6 and authorize a purchase order in the amount of $4,875.01 for additional interest fees in accordance with the contract approved June 14th, 2023. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion.
Yeah,
Roll-
I'm sorry, the contractor's agreement with this?
Yes.
Okay.
A few years back, we were dinged by the state auditors for not getting our payments out fast enough. Get the check signed, get them out. What is this going to,
That was on the bid process.
on the bid process?
Correct.
So
Wasn't
this
payments.
will not
No,
affect
it wasn't
anything?
payments in general, no.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Antonetts?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, that's all I
Okay,
have.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to police.
Good evening again. On the topic of retirements, we received a letter of retirement from Officer Darren Hutchinson, who's retiring after 28 years of service to the Genoa Township Police Department. Hutch, as everybody knows him, and everybody knows Hutch, is our most senior officer, and been kind of a bedrock. I mean, he's the guy that shows up to work every day, does his job exactly as expected, goes above and beyond. We're going to miss him, but I know he's going to enjoy his retirement. He's a township resident, so he'll still be around. People will still see him around in the township, but not as a police officer.
Okay, I'll move to accept the retirement of Police Officer Darren Hutchison, effective December 31st, 2023. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antonetts? Yes. Ms. Goodman? Yes. Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries. I want to thank him for his service.
The last item I have is to approve an education supplement for Officer Nathaniel Wilson for an associate's degree. The contractual amount of that is 75 cents an hour. It says bachelor's degree. I believe it's an associate's degree, though. That's correct. It says, so it's for the associate's degree. And he's given all of his college transcripts to Ms. Greco.
Do I need to amend this motion?
Yeah, it should
Oh,
say to-
associates.
for
I see it. I couldn't
associate's
find it.
degree.
Okay, found it. Okay, perfect. I'll move to approve the education supplement for full-time police officer Nathaniel Wilson per Article 14.11 in the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association Union Agreement in the amount of 75 cents an hour for an associate degree effective
Effective November,
Is it tonight?
November.
Okay, November 2nd,
Yes.
2023. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antoinette? Yes. Ms. Goodman? Yes. Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Last, Linda with Human Resources.
Thank you. Just a little background on this request that I'm asking for. The pharmacy manager that we currently have is called, their name is TrueRx, and we switched to them last year because they offered a rebate program, and it was going to give us back approximately $40,000 a year. Unfortunately, we've had a really difficult time working with them. We switched from EHIM, who was a great company to work with, but they didn't have that rebate program, so we thought we'd try this out. I don't think it's working, and actually EHIM developed the same type of rebate program this past year, so my request is that you approve switching back to EHIM. They will have a rebate program. We'll still be getting back $40,000 to $50,000 in rebates coming up, and I'd like that to begin next year.
Okay, I'll move to enter into an agreement with Employee Health Insurance Management Incorporated effective January 1st, 2024 as the township's pharmacy benefit manager. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else before I close out? Announcements, November 7th is Election Day. November 7th is also the Fire Advisory Committee. November 8th, Police Advisory Committee. November 9th, Communications Advisory Committee. November 10th, offices closed, Veterans Day. November 23rd and 24th, offices closed, Thanksgiving. November 28th, Board of Zoning Appeals. December 6th, Parks Advisory Committee. Next regular trustee meeting is November 7th, 2023. December, thank you. At this time, I'll move to adjourn to executive session at 7:22 p.m. for the purpose of conferencing with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, preparing for or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment, and to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Yes. Ms. Vaughn?
Motion carries. We're now adjourned into executive session. Okay, ready. I'll move to return from executive session to the regular trustee meeting at 9:04 PM. Do I have a second?
Second?
At this time, there's no more business before the boards.
Oh, Mr. Antoinette.
Oh, thank you.
Goodman,
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Somebody's in a hurry.
I'm just ready to go. I'll move to adjourn this meeting at 9:05 PM. Do I have a second?
Second?
Mr.
Roll call.
Antoinette.
Yes.
Ms. Goodman.
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn.
Yes, motion carries. We're adjourned at 9:05.